Now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Andy Henriquez. Andy is a strategic storytelling expert, speaker, and coach who has the unique gift of crafting and delivering transformational messages, leaving a lasting impact on his audience. His spellbinding delivery style and power-packed content is the reason why world-renowned motivational speaker Les Brown affectionately refers to him as the Great One. Whether standing on stage and captivating an audience with his heartfelt and compelling message, or conducting workshops and trainings, Andy's impact resonates with audiences worldwide. Andy's experiences and accomplishments are diverse and vast, giving him the special ability to relate to all audiences. Andy was born to Haitian immigrants who came to this country in pursuit of the American dream. With the core values of hard work, discipline, and commitment instilled by his parents, Andy attended Florida State University, graduating summa cum laude in accounting. As a licensed CPA, Andy worked for the prestigious accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP. A risk taker and a businessman at heart, Andy left his firm in 2004 to fulfill his destiny as an entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. Andy is known for delivering messages that go beyond the mind and penetrate the heart of audiences. A sought-after speaker, Andy has shared the stage with world-renowned motivational speakers, best-selling authors, and coaches. Andy, we're so pleased to have you with us today, and we're eager to hear from you. Please help me welcome Andy Henriquez.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Dean Hardline, and of course, I also want to acknowledge the other deans and faculty and staff members that are here, and of course, a warm welcome to all the family and friends that came out to support your loved ones. And the reason why we're all here, the Spring 2016 Masters graduation class. You guys could go ahead and give them another round of applause. You know, on my way up here, I was just trying to reflect, and maybe you can think of that moment that you made the decision to come here to Florida State University. And I don't know what it was for you. Maybe you grew up watching and rooting on the Florida State Seminoles. Maybe you got online and you were looking for one of the top business programs in the country. You did your research and you found out that this is the program. Or maybe you just knew that you would not look good whatsoever using blue and orange, right? Nobody looks good in blue and orange. So, you know, for me, you know, the decision came very early on. I was in my junior year in high school, and I got selected in a program called Boys State. And what they did is they brought us all up to Tallahassee to sort of learn about the legislative process and learn how bills are passed and how the laws are passed. And the host campus was Florida State University. And let me just tell you, when we first stepped foot on campus, I just started looking around. I happen to have a couple friends that graduated before me that told me how their experience has been so amazing at Florida State University. I started walking around, I saw the facilities, got in front of Strozier Library, saw the green, saw people out there relaxing, hanging out. You know, I actually realized for the first time that there's hills in the state of Florida. I grew up in Florida, had no idea there were hills till I came up to Tallahassee. Met squirrels that would walk you to class, right? You probably met a couple of them as well. And you know, I just absolutely made the decision that moment. And let me just tell you, by far, it has been one of the best decisions that I have ever made, coming here to Florida State University. And so now I sort of try to think about it. I'm 15 years removed from where you are right now. And no, I'm not old, just so you know that. I'm 15 years removed, and I just try to put myself back in your seats and try to think about, you know, what is it that I wish that someone would perhaps have shared with me as I get ready to, you know, go into the business world and make things happen. And so there's basically just three things that I want to share with you. And so the first thing that I want to share with you is that as you get ready to go into this business world, I want to really commission you to make sure that you go after your passion and try to figure out what your passion and your purpose is. Because what I find is in the business world, and if you really want to represent on behalf of Florida State University, it's all about getting out there and making a significant impact. And you're going to make the greatest impact in an area that you're passionate about, that's in alignment with your purpose and what you believe your ultimate calling is. And what I've come to realize is that impact by default drives income. And so the more impact that you can make in the business world by default, you will be able to have greater income. And so what I want you to get away from is just simply trying to chase a paycheck, but I want you to be thinking about using your gifts, your skills, your talents, this tremendous education that you've gotten from Florida State University. I want you to think about, how is it that I can make a significant impact, a contribution? You see, when I left Florida State University, I had my master's degree. A group of us in the master's program studied like crazy to be able to pass the CPA exam. I landed a job with PricewaterhouseCoopers, phenomenal company. But you know what? After about a couple years of working there, I realized that it wasn't really what my passion was. And even though I was effective as an auditor, I wasn't very passionate about it. And for a while, I was just really holding on to safety of a paycheck. And it wouldn't be until December of 2004 that for me was a defining moment. And that was the moment that I decided to stop holding on to a paycheck and really go after what my passion and what my purpose and my calling is, which ultimately has allowed me to go to major corporations and deliver keynote messages and speeches. And what I realized was my passion was not necessarily preparing financial statements, but impacting the business world using my voice, delivering talks and speeches. And so I'm really commissioning you to really think about for a moment, what is that passion? And I tell you, for me, that the moment when I realized that this is what I wanted to do was I was at an event and there was a gentleman standing at the front of the room. And he says, if you want to know what your passion is, you're trying to figure it out. He said, I want you to imagine for a moment that you had all the money that you ever wanted in your bank account, whatever that number is for you, 10 million, 20 million, whatever that number is for you. And he said, I want you to also envision that whatever fears that you have been completely taken away from you. So the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of things not working out. And then he said that, but there's one caveat. You have to provide a service in the business community. He said, what is it that you could wake up every single day and do and be passionate about it and then not even feel like work? Somebody says, if you do the thing that you love, then it will never feel like work. And I knew I wanted to be the person in front of the room. And so I want you to think about, what is it that you can do to create a significant impact and really pursue your passion? The second thing is, I want to tell you, is to raise the bar. You know what I love about Florida State University? Florida State is always raising the bar. I mean, every time you step foot on this campus, if you've gone away and you come back, they're always trying to find ways to bring more programs to the actual university. They're always trying to find ways to make the facilities better. They're always trying to find ways to bring in the top professors and the top deans. They're always constantly raising the bar. And so you've been part of this tremendous university, and so by default, you've been part of a system that is conditioned to raise the bar. But now you're at a new place. Now you have to be willing to raise the bar on yourself. It's no longer to be your parents, your family members, the deans, the faculty, and the staff that are asking you to raise the bar. You've got to raise the bar on yourself. And so it reminds me, my cousins and I, we used to play a game in the backyard. We would take my aunt's broomstick and we would take the end of the broomstick off and we'd go in the backyard and two of us would hold the broomstick down low and the rest of the people would get in a line. And so the object of the game is they would hold the broomstick down low, everybody else get in a single file line, and you would basically walk over the broomstick. And every time you got back in the line, you would look at the two people who are holding the broomstick and you would instruct them to raise the bar. And every time they raised the bar, what happened is it required you to concentrate a little more. You had to exert a little more energy. You had to get a little more focus. And every time they'd get it to a level in which you thought that maybe perhaps you wouldn't be able to make it over, once you did make it over, you discovered some things about yourself that you didn't even know was possible. And so here's what I could tell you right now, that regardless of what you've done to get to this point right now, and you've accomplished so much, to realize this, it is only the tip of the iceberg of what's possible for you. And so I want you to raise the bar on yourself. And so what does that look like? That means that, you know what, if you envision yourself working at a bank, then why not become the chairman or the owner of the bank? If you can envision yourself actually filing the paperwork to help a company have their IPO, why not be the CEO and the actual head of the company that's having the initial public offering? And what I'm talking about is raising the bar, not being mediocre, because that's not in a Seminole. You guys are Seminoles, correct? Absolutely. And so we want to raise the bar. And thirdly, the last thing that I would tell you is that you've got to make sure that you show up. You see, here's what I know, that, you know what, to get to this moment, you had to show up. You had to show up to the classroom. You had to show up for your exams. You had to show up even in times when you didn't exactly feel like it. And this is so important when you get ready to step out there in the real world. And so maybe perhaps one of the best ways for me to get you to understand what it means to show up, I want to end by sharing one last story with you. You know, as Dean Hartline said, that, you know, my parents came here originally from Haiti. When my mom came to this country, she had less than $150 to her name. And as a matter of fact, like many immigrants, she started off just working any kind of job she could. As a matter of fact, one of her first jobs, she worked down in Miami, Florida, making up the hotel beds. That's why to this day, when I stay at a hotel, I leave a tip, because at one point, that was my mom making up the beds. And her second job, she worked in a purse factory. As the purses came down the assembly line, she would reverse the purses and prepare them for stitching. And she always had a desire to go into business. Now, unlike you and I, she never had a formal business education. And so about 22 years after being in this country, she finally got her golden opportunity. She was in Palm Beach, Florida, in a city called Delray Beach, and she saw a freestanding building. And so my mom decided to go in and lease out the building and open up a Haitian cuisine. And so she opens up this Haitian restaurant. She's about 2 years into business. Business is starting to pick up. She's past the break-even mark. She's starting to actually profit. It's a Saturday. She's at home relaxing. And here she is relaxing on Saturday, and she gets a knock on the door. When she opens up the door, this gentleman hands my mom some legal documents. When she gets the legal documents, she starts flipping through them, and she realizes that the property that she had been paying the landlord every single month like clockwork, that the landlord wasn't paying the mortgage. And because of that, the property was going to foreclosure. So you can imagine at this point, my mom is absolutely devastated. And so she just makes a decision. She says, you know what, at a minimum, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drive up to this foreclosure sale, and I'm gonna see whatever big time real estate investor actually buys the property, and I'm gonna see if I can please beg them and convince them to allow me to stay in there and continue to rent the property. And so my mom drives up to Palm Beach, Florida, the day of the sale, and when she gets there, she's in shock because she's expecting a room full of people like this. And when she gets there, there's only 2 people there. There's this gentleman who's the auctioneer, and there's this woman who's a representative from the bank. And before my mom could figure out exactly what's going on, the auctioneer's at the podium. He says, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start the bidding process on 540 West Atlantic Avenue. If you're here to bid on the property, please raise your hand. And so naturally, the representative from the bank raised her hand. My mom had no intentions on bidding on the property, and so my mom decided to take an act of faith, and she raised her hand. Martin Luther King said that faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the entire staircase. And so the auctioneer has to keep the bidding process. He starts off at $30,000. The banker says $30,000. Now my mom's standing over here, she gets caught up in the excitement. My mom says $35,000, has no idea where she's gonna get the money from. It goes into the $40,000s. Now they're in the $50,000s. Now they're in the $60,000s. They get to the $70,000. Gets to the banker, she says $74,000. My mom says $75,000. Banker says $76,000. Now my mom, she's catching the attitude because she's like, I don't have this money anyway, right? So my mom goes $76,500. And so the auctioneer's got to keep the process going. And so he doesn't hear anything else from the bank representative. He says $76,500 going once, no answer. $76,500 going twice, no answer. He says $76,500 sold to who? My mother, the woman who was willing to show up. The woman who came from the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. The woman who had no intentions on bidding on the property. At that time, they gave you 30 days to come up with the money. My mom would call every family member, every friend to be able to borrow that money. She's 3 days away, and she's still $30,000 short. She's almost ready to give up. Her telephone rings. It's her friend Yvonne. She said, Marie, I know you've been calling everyone. I know you need $30,000. My husband and I, we've been saving up money to buy our home. And we thought about it, and we want to go ahead and lend you the $30,000. My mom's in shock. My mom would take all the money that she raised from family and friends. She'd get some cashier's checks. She would drive to the Palm Beach courthouse. And that day, my mom went from being the tenant to being the landlord, all because she was willing to show up. A couple years ago, my mom was offered over $1 million for that property, pushed the offer back and said, no, thank you. And so here's what I could tell you right now. As you get ready to go out into the real world, you know what? There's going to be times when you maybe are feeling a little tired. There are going to be times when you get hit with some obstacles, some disappointments. There are going to be times that you're going to ask yourself, why should I bother continuing to try to grow this business or continue down this career path? And I just want to remind you to always make sure that you continue to show up. That you show up in spite of the circumstances, that you show up in spite of the setbacks, that you show up in spite of the naysayers, in spite of what anybody else says. Because Woody Allen said that 80% of success is simply showing up. And so this is a defining moment for you. And I just want to leave you with these three things. And for you to remember is, number one, don't just chase a paycheck. Go after your passion. Go after your dreams. Number two, make sure that you continue to raise the bar. Don't settle for mediocrity. You're a Seminole. We always raise the bar. And last but not least, make sure that you show up for your lives, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't, nobody else will. Go Noles.